Welcome to Yogg-Saron. Okay, there's a lot of information to cram into this fight, so I'm going to be displaying a lot on the screen as we go through and mainly talking about tactics, so keep an eye on pause the video if you need to read anything in more detail. I've also speeded this video up because it was 14 minutes long. I needed to take it down to the 10-minute barrier. Okay, phase 1, cloud phase. Sarah stands in the middle and she can't be DPS directly. She's taken down by killing the guardians that periodically spawn from clouds next to her. When they die, they do an AoE damage of 25,000 shadow damage, hitting anything nearby. Explode them effectively next to Sarah and her health will go down. The hardest and yet easiest part of this fight is players and clouds. Every time a player hits a cloud, as in walks into it, every time a cloud runs over a player, and for each cloud they hit, another ad spawns. Unless you're very careful as to where you position your melee and your ranged, and they in turn are very careful as to where they stand and move to, you'll soon find yourself swamped. So stay the hell away from clouds. Some guilds tend to DPS the Guardian on the outside edge, away from all clouds, then pull it into Sarah just before it dies. We choose to tank it and DPS it right next to Sarah, so DPS as much as you can, but do not sacrifice your positioning, that comes first. If you get any extra adds, it's as good as killing your team.
Let hatred and rage guide your blows!
Okay, once Sarah's been got rid of, finish off any remaining guardians, and then we move to phase 2, the tentacle phase. Okay, so you're going to be dealing with Sarah and 3 types of tentacles in this phase. Sarah you can't really do anything about, to be honest, so just make sure you be aware of her effects. You've got Brain Link, where 2 players with a big red line in between them, if they're more than 20 yards apart, will be taking a lot of shadow damage and losing 2% sanity every second. These players need to get next to each other and just carry on with whatever they're tasked to do in this part of the fight. Malady of the Mind, you'll basically be running around horrid, but thankfully if you're under that effect you can't be hit by the death ray. We will see some green beams blasting the ground. If you get hit with that twice, you're dead. Okay, so the tentacles. You've got Crusher tentacles, Corruptor tentacles and Constrictor tentacles. Crushers need to be taken down and burned ASAP by the ranged team. Corruptors taken down by the melee team. Constrictor tentacles have priority DPS if you're near one that's grabbed a player, because they grab them and hold them there. They can't, they're not actually prevented from casting, and they're just prevented from moving. But if they've grabbed a melee and you're hitting the portal phase, then obviously you're going to reduce the amount of melee DPS you have inside the brain. So you've got to make sure you take down the Constrictor and then the Crusher / Corruptor. Okay, the Crusher tentacle has diminished power, which is why range need to burn it down really quickly. You only want 1 up at any given point in time. They do a buff that reduces the overall raid damage done by 20%, so you've really got to knock that down. Melee can't go near it because it hits like a truck, so stay on your Corruptor and burn it down. Right, portal phases. You should aim for only 3 of these portal phases, and what you'll find is that portals appear like the numbers on a clock face around the boss. Ideally, prior to the fight, the 9 melee and the single priest that are going to be going in there will have been allocated a clock number, so you know where to stand and which portal to take. The portal disappears when you use it, so if you nick someone else's portal, they're stuffed, and you're obviously reducing the amount of melee DPS you've got inside the brain, potentially even losing your healer on the way in. When you take the portal, you'll either find yourself in the Ice Crown Citadel, Stormwind Keep, or Chamber of the Aspects. Now, depending on which one you're in, the tactic actually changes very slightly. In the Ice Crown Citadel, you'll find clumps of tentacles appearing in different places in the room. Each time you hit them, you will actually take damage yourself, so the healer needs to keep on top of this. Be careful with line of sight though, because you've got columns in the room which can inhibit how you get healed. This, as with the other 2 types of brain encounters or portal phases, you'll see some floating skulls in the air that shoot out these purple beams. These purple beams reduce the amount of sanity that you've got, and if you should reach 0 sanity, you'll be turned insane and mind controlled by the boss, and you'll need to be killed by your raid team. So healers stay on top of player health. Turn your back to the skulls so you don't get sanity loss, and then once the tentacles have been killed, go through the open door, DPS down the brain as much as you can. You've got 60 seconds from point of entering through the portals to actually get out again, So in that time you need to take down all the little adds so the door opens, and DPS down the brain as much as you can. When the brain reaches 30%, you'll actually reach phase 3. In the Stormwind Keep version of the portal phase, you'll be taking damage constantly but have no line of sight issues. It's also much harder to turn you back to school, so you're actually going to be taking a lot more damage. More emphasis on the healer on this one. The tentacles are situated around the edge of the room, so you just DPS them down, get the door open, and go through the brain to carry on hitting it as hard as you can. The Chamber of the Aspects is similar again. It's quite hard to avoid damage and you've got line of sight issues, so go around in the same direction, running and hitting all the illusions as you go around, so you open the door and get back into the brain. If you see your screen start to flash red at any point, and this goes for anybody in the raid, it means you're slowly going insane. You've hit about 25-26 sanity points left, so you need to go and stand in a green beam when you get back out before you go back into the next portal phase, because incidental sanity loss from facing schools will actually get you mind controlled by the boss. Okay, so phase 3. Phase 3 is actually the easiest one, easiest phase of the fight, and you can choose to either throw your melee on the adds or your melee on the boss, and your range on the adds or the ranged on the boss. The Immortal Guardians that spawn actually do a hell of a lot of damage because of a buff they have on them, this empowering buff. And so some guilds tend to throw cleaving melees at the mobs because it takes them down from 100% health straight away, therefore reduces the amount of damage it can do to the tank. You've got to be quick in two areas. First of all, the tank's got to be very quick in picking him up and building ag, because the DPS has got to be very quick in getting it down from 100% to stop wiping the tank out in a couple of shots. You really only want one up at any point in time, and if your DPS is good enough, you'll manage that. Just like inside the portal phases, you're going to get the purple beam striking out again from the boss. Every time one of these hits you, and it will hit you if you're facing it, you'll lose 4% sanity. Green beams are still there, so top yourself up if you need to. But depending on whether you're assigned to DPS the boss or DPS the adds, you need to keep firing and keep firing, because you've got a 5-minute enrage timer and there's a lot of health to be removed. The adds just keep coming and coming, and I believe they speed up, so you really need to get those under control. If you're ranged and you're facing the adds, you can position yourself so that your back is always facing the boss, which means you never have to run or turn from purple beams, and you can just keep on DPSing non-stop the adds to clear them out. So that's about it really. There's a lot to the fight. Just to recap, phase 2 is actually the hardest phase, assuming you can get your players moving in phase 1 correctly. Ranged on the crushers, melee on the corruptors, and take out the constructors when they appear. You've really got to burn those tentacles down fast. Ranged when you've taken out your big crushers. Don't stop DPS for a rest. Go and turn your attention on any remaining tentacle in the room. As a group, move together and burn them down. This is quite a mana-intensive fight, so I'd recommend sticking a Judgment of Wisdom up whenever you can on the crushers. It will help with ranged DPS. Okay, so as I said, there's a lot to this fight, and there's been a lot of information displayed on the screen as well as talked about, so make sure you go through it a few times to so you've actually got it all in your head. There's a lot of improvements that can be made. I've kind of briefly touched upon it. You could talk for half an hour quite easily about how to manage this fight better and get him down quicker, especially obviously when you come to take him on in hard mode eventually. Anyway, so that's the fight in its entirety. Good luck with the rest of your encounter.
Your fate is sealed!